Great. Well, I don't know how, Nikki, you're going to cut that into something that makes sense. But
I'll find a way.
I believe in you and trust you completely.
If she can edit me to sound like somewhat, coherent, that'll be great. Welcome back to BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. We are so excited to finally be back for season 2. I know it's been a little bit since we've been here talking about books, drinking some drinks, but we are so happy to be here and we can't wait to get started. We have a really fun episode coming up. I'm Kelly.
I'm Nikki.
And I'm Tilly.
This week, we're talking about Ace of Spades by Faridah Abike-Iyimide, a YA novel which was published in June 2021. And we also have a very special guest for this episode. I'm a big fan of hers. She's an American booktuber we all know and love who has a popular series called Book Community. It's Jess Owens. Welcome, Jess.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We're so excited to talk to you about this book. So before we get into the book, we want to give a quick heads up that this book deals with many difficult subjects, including systemic racism, racially and sexually motivated violence, homophobia, PTSD, and suicidal ideation. Here's the publisher's synopsis from Nikki.
When two Nivius Private Academy students, Devon Richards and Chiamaka Adebayo, are selected to be part of the elite school's senior class prefects, it looks like their year is off to an amazing start. After all, not only does it look great on college applications, but it officially puts each of them in the running for valedictorian too. Shortly after the announcement is made, though, someone who goes by Aces begins using anonymous text messages to reveal secrets about the two of them that turn their lives upside down and threaten every aspect of their carefully planned futures. As Aces shows no sign of stopping, what seemed like a sick prank quickly turns into a dangerous game, with all the cards stacked against them. Can Devon and Chiamaka stop Aces before things become incredibly deadly? With heart-pounding suspense and relevant social commentary comes a high-octane thriller from debut author Faridah Abike-Iyimide.
Okay, so the drink we've chosen to pair with this episode is actually a popular casino cocktail called Last Chance. It's made with 2 parts vodka, 4 parts orange juice, and 1 part triple sec. We thought it would be kind of a good fit because of all the gambling themes in this book. I mean, obviously it's called Ace of Spades, and also the threatening mystery of aces giving, rise to the meaning of the words last chance.
Yes.
So why don't we all just take a little sip here? I'm very excited. It's very orange.
Yeah, there's a lot of orange. I was really surprised to have orange juice and triple sec, so it's going to be tart.
I didn't even know what triple sec was, so here we are.
We're learning new things every day. Here we go.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh. Wow, mine was not mixed. That was quite strong.
Oh no.
I kind of pushed the ice cubes around a little bit, but there's definitely
Lethal.
vodka in there.
You need to swirl a little bit.
Like
Swirl.
Did you say
But
swirl, little girl?
Or is it swirl a little bit?
Isn't that James Bond's thing, shaken, not swirled?
No.
Starting off strong with some dumb jokes over here for me.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, she is tart and bitter. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect segue. So, as you all know, if you have listened to any of our episodes from season 1, we like to start off with a star rating out of 5, and we all have our different reasonings behind why we rate it the way we do. So, yeah, why don't we get started off with our special guest, Jess. What did you think about this book?
So when I finished this book on Goodreads, I didn't rate it, and I've been trying to process my thoughts. And so I feel like I would a 3.5 rounded up to 4. I have a lot of feelings. Like, it was a really easy, like a quick read. I thought it would take me longer, but I kind of powered through it. The atmosphere was there. It made me very anxious. And but I also was very uncomfortable. Like, I can't say I enjoyed it because I spent the entire book angry and worried.
Yeah.
So like I have this weird feeling with the book, but I'll just sit at 4 for now, and we'll talk about why.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Nikki.
Yeah, so I kind of feel the same as Jess, honestly. I spent the whole time kind of being like, oh, I don't know. But at the same time, I mean, I was messaging Kelly and Tilly being like, you guys need to read this book. You need to read it right now because there's so much stuff happening and I
Yes.
need to talk to somebody about it. It was just like one thing after the next. I felt like every plot twist was warranted, which is great and something you don't see a lot in like YA mystery fiction and stuff like that. So that was really great. But I ended up giving it a 4-star. There were things with the writing that I didn't particularly care for all that much. And I think having background before reading it ruined some of the plot for me, which I'll get into later. But yeah, 4 stars.
Okay, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, even though I agree with quite a few things that you just said, Nikki. And similar to you, Jess, on Goodreads, I was like, okay, I need to process this. I still haven't written like a little review blurb because there's just so much in this book that I'm like, whew, let's unpack this, you know? Yes. But I ended up giving it a 4.5 because even though there were some moments where it was not a surprise to me in terms of how some of the twists played out because of the background knowledge we had from some of the marketing, I will say. I'm going to blame the marketing because I think that's what did it.
Yeah.
Because I loved how it was written, but I already knew it was going to happen at some points, and so that I don't always enjoy, but I still gave it a 4.5 because of the way I felt reading it. I was so sucked in. I was so concerned. I was excited to find out what was going to happen next. How is this going to play out? So, yeah, 4.5. What about you, Tilly?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of repetitive because I feel like we all kind of had the same experience reading this book, but I'm in the same boat. I gave it, I think, a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, and that was mostly based on the strength of the writing. Like, I really feel as a debut author, she was able to create a world that I was compelled by very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I was realizing as I was reading through that things start happening kind of right away and you're already invested. Like, you don't need a lot of background on the characters to really feel like interested in their story and like want them to succeed. And I think there were some really well executed plot twists. I do find the pacing was like a little unpredictable at times, and sometimes things were like revealed almost too late to be relevant for the story, but I still really enjoyed it. I agree, Jess, it was a super quick read. And yeah, I kind of flew through it and I felt like yikes all around the whole time, but I think that's a strength of the author that she made us feel yikes,
Yes.
you know? So
So much
where I'm at
yikes.
with it. Yeah.
Sorry, did you say a star rating?
I said right at the beginning, I said a 4 out of 5.
I just heard the emotion. I was like, yes, yes.
Well, I'll repeat it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I gotta say, like, the very beginning for me was a little slow, like a little slow burn, and then I was like, oh my god. Like, I was on the edge of my seat. I felt like I was watching one of those 90s thrillers, you know, like The Witness or The Firm, where I was like, oh god, like, just because you know bad stuff's gonna happen, and like, oh my god, I can't believe this is her debut. Like, this was great, and she wrote it during university.
Yeah, what?
How dare she?
I know, I had no idea that this was her debut or when she wrote it or anything. I went into this completely blind. I actually had it on my Goodreads, and when Kelly mentioned doing it for the podcast, I was like, what's that? So I literally didn't remember what the book was about at all. I didn't read the synopsis in the front before I started reading, and I'm so happy I didn't. And reading the author's note at the end, I was just like, man, she's so accomplished, and this was so good. I mean, we've talked about other debut novels that were like, woof. That was bad.
I was just
and this was like so amazing.
wait, I was going to say, remember we talked about Sarah J. Maas with Throne of Glass? I was like, oh, she wrote it when she was 16. I'm like, yeah, clearly. Like, good for you.
It's
but also,
obvious.
yeah, like, good for you. But she started this when she was 18?
I can't imagine.
Honestly, it's just very rude for her to be so talented. That's all I have to say.
Quite.
Yeah.
So talented, so young.
Oh my gosh. What did you think about Devon and Chiamaka? Like, did you find yourselves leaning more towards one of the characters than the other? Like, I had a hard time liking Chiamaka until like the middle, and not like feeling sympathetic or anything. Like, I was still really worried about her, but like thinking of like, would I want to be friends with this person? You know what I mean? Like, I was so like, Devon got me right away, and I understand that Chiamaka was supposed to be kind of like is it Blair Waldorf? Is that her name? Gossip Girl?
Yeah,
I've never-
the kind of like
never seen it,
unlikable,
Yes.
popular girl kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, you know, Faridah did her job. Like, I did not like her at the beginning, but I still cared about what happened to her.
Yeah.
Like, did you find yourselves leaning more towards one character?
Yeah, I felt closer and felt more for Devon, especially right off the bat, for various reasons we'll get into later. And Chiamaka, I definitely struggled. And towards the middle, I started to feel more like compassion for her, like I understood, but I still never liked her. Even up to the end, I just was like, she just wasn't my favorite. But like, you know, I felt for both of them for what they were going through during the story.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yeah, she was definitely, the mean popular girl, which personally I cannot relate to at all in my high school life. So that was very outside of my experiences, being like cool and popular. But I do agree that there was like a compassion there for her, especially when she started kind of realizing that she might have feelings for someone else who was. Wait, can I say this? Is this a spoiler?
It's kind of a spoiler.
All the things I want to say are spoilers.
This is a really hard book to talk about vaguely.
It is. Yeah.
I know. I'm sure we're going to go into spoilers pretty soon because, yeah, it's like,
Yes.
how do you?
Great. Well, I don't know how, Nikki, you're going to cut that into something that makes sense. But
I'll find
I
a
believe
way.
in you and trust you completely.
If she can edit me to sound like somewhat, coherent, that'll be great. Oh my god. So, do we want to get into book recommendations then, so that we can go into spoiler territory?
I think that's probably a good timing.
Yes. So, I would recommend Legendborn by Tracy Deonn because there are similar themes in that book that are also in Ace of Spades. So, Legendborn is about a girl named Bree, I believe. It's been a while since I read the book.
Yeah.
And yes, okay. It was a big book, but wow. So she goes to university for like a pre-college, I guess this is in the US, so pre-college high school program where she takes a few courses and she's living on the campus and taking some classes, etc. And she is one of a few Black people. And the institution is clearly, built off of slavery and rich, privileged white people. So she feels like an outcast, and she joins this secret society where it is very much just, not her usual scene, right? And people don't treat her with respect, and there's definitely, some well-concealed racism and some overt racism in the society. So it talks about racism, eugenics, with some of the root magic we get into. I don't want to give spoilers, but there's just a lot of similar themes in the book, some tonal similarities, and I really enjoyed it. That was also a debut novel. It was an urban fantasy, and there are things I didn't like about it, but I enjoyed it overall. So I would recommend Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Nikki, do you have a recommendation?
I do. You're going to laugh because it's going to sound really backhanded and awful considering what we thought about the book during our last season. But I'm actually going to recommend Children of Blood and Bone by Tommy Adeyemi.
My God.
I did not personally like this book, but I don't think that other people wouldn't enjoy it. Tilly really liked the book.
Yeah, I loved it.
And it has a lot of similar themes. There's a lot of talk about race and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's something that if people really liked that aspect of this book, it's something to delve further into in Children of Blood and Bone.
Okay, Tilly, do you have a recommendation?
I do. So this is less of a content recommendation and more of a like theme and tone recommendation. So I was really reminded a lot while reading this book of a book I read when I was in high school or maybe middle school. I remember having kind of a large impact on me. So it's an older YA novel called Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. It's kind of more of a sci-fi and speculative fiction story about an alternate kind of segregated society with a dark-skinned ruling class and a colorless underclass who were once slaves. And so this also deals with prejudice and racism and forbidden romances, and it's more of a kind of Romeo and Juliet retelling, but I remember it being really impactful on me. I remember having really poetic writing, and I don't know, it just made me think a lot about that story while I was reading this book, even though obviously they're quite different.
That sounds really cool. I'm going to have to look that up. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's
one.
great.
Cool. And do you have any recommendations, Jess?
Yes, so I would recommend Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. I read recently, I finished at the end of July, and that is also a YA. I've seen it categorized as thriller. I would say more mystery because it definitely is more of a slow burn. It's a little longer than Ace of Spades, but I thought of it just because, again, a YA mystery, and it has a lot of hard topics that it covers as well. And the main character she's White Anne Ojibwe, if I'm saying that correctly. And so she's just more like ethnic and racial struggles. So that was just one that I thought of. But it's really good. I would check content warnings, though. There is a lot in it dealing with Indigenous people and like history of residential schools, a lot, but it's so good. And it's also a really amazing debut by an Indigenous author. So that one's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's been on my list for a while.
I have that in the room that Nikki is recording in today. I can't wait to read it. I know I'm going to need to like take time to just focus on the one book when I read that one. I'm so excited.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Thank you. All right, we're moving into spoilers territory now. So if you haven't read the book and don't want to know how it all turns out, you should probably stop listening right now and then come back because we love you. And if you like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a rating or review on your podcast app of choice. So if you don't want any spoilers, you should leave now. Okay, we'll begin with a quick recap of the rest of the book so we're all on the same page.
Each chapter alternates from the points of view of two students at Nivius Academy. Shy pianist Devon Richards, a scholarship student just trying to get through high school so he can escape to Juilliard, and Chiamaka Adebayo, the beautiful head prefect and queen bee of the school, who is hoping to go into pre-med at Yale.
Both students are living with secrets. Chiamaka is haunted by a car accident last year which left a blonde girl bleeding out in the middle of the road, and Devon is wrestling with the decision to tell his mother he is gay, as well as secretly dating the toughest man in his neighborhood and occasionally dealing drugs for him to make ends meet.
Devon and Chiamaka don't have much in common, but when an anonymous texter called Aces starts revealing their secrets to all of the other students, it becomes clear that the two of them, the only black students at Nivius, are the main targets.
Throughout it all, Chiamaka and Devon are still just trying to navigate high school life. Chiamaka has been in love with her best friend Jamie for years and is crushed when he starts dating pretty lacrosse player Belle Robinson. Meanwhile, Devon's best friend Jack has been distancing himself from Devon ever since finding out he's gay, and Devon's secret boyfriend Dre feels forced to break up with him because of Ace's texts. Chiamaka also realizes she has growing feelings for Belle, and they begin seeing each other.
As Devon and Chiamaka slowly become social pariahs, they hatch a plan to catch the mysterious texter before their lives and futures are completely destroyed. They figure out that all the texts are being scheduled and sent from a computer in the Nivius library on Sunday nights. Chi and Devon go on a stakeout and they see someone in a mask log onto the computer. Chiamaka unmasks the person, but she is horrified to discover that it's the blonde girl from the car accident who she thought was dead.
Dun, dun, dun. So on the computer, Devon finds out that Niveus Academy is home to a disgusting secret society called the Ace of Spades, which is dedicated to systematically ruining the lives of its black students. Most of Chiamaka's and Devon's friends are listed as members. And as the records show, the school accepts 2 black students every 10 years, and in their senior year, the society strikes, orchestrating incriminating situations to drive the students out of the school or even to their own deaths.
Along with Terrell Rosario, a kind young man from Devon's past, they all come up with a plan to expose Niveus on the news. Devon, unsure of who he can trust, also tweets about the Ace of Spades Society. They all prepare for the Snowflake Ball, where the news station will broadcast the confrontation.
However, at the ball, Devon and Chiamaka discover that the news station is also a part of it all and never intended to help. Shocker. Just as Headmaster Ward brandishes a gun and threatens to take them down once and for all, a wave of protesters break into the school. It turns out that Devon's tweet had gone viral, and people from all over the country mobilized to come to their rescue. In the aftermath, somehow a fire is started and Niveus burns to the ground, killing Jamie, yes, and several other students. I'm sorry, I did not care.
I had no feelings.
Same.
Good riddance.
Yeah.
In the epilogue, 16 years later, we see a letter from the founders of an underground society dedicated to protecting young black students from the kind of systemic discrimination and psychological warfare at Niveus. The letter is signed Dr. Chiamaka Adebayo and Devon Richards. We find out that Terrell and Devon end up together, and in the last scene, Chiamaka confronts a dying Mr. Ward in her medical office. End scene.
I loved the ending. I was like, even though I definitely cared on like a personal level more for Devon than Chiamaka, that ending, I was like, oh, like
Yeah,
get
empowering.
her. Yes. Oh my God. I was so excited. But I was like, did she kill him?
Yeah, okay, so that's how I felt too. I was like, on the one hand, I'm like, yes! And then I thought about it and I'm like, wait a minute, but what actually happened there? So I had several questions at the end, like,
Her
you know,
final patient, it said.
yeah, what kind of doctor was she? Who was this pregnant Mia that they talked about? What was she going to do with Ward? Is he a live-in patient? Is she killing him? I have questions.
I
Yes.
was assuming that the pregnant lady was her wife.
Yeah.
I assumed that, but I was like, how come it's just a throwaway like Mia? We don't know. We don't care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't care about Mia. I want to know, did she kill Ward? That's what
There
I
were
wanna
so many other questions I needed answers to that honestly Mia was like the last of my concerns. I was like, pregnant lady, who cares?
I was invested. I was like, Chiamaka found out that she was gay, and it was like so beautiful and powerful, and then you know,
Yeah.
she ends up with a woman, and I was just like so happy for her.
Well, gay or bi, right? We don't really know. We
Yeah.
don't,
That's true. You're right.
Yeah, we don't really explore that side of her very much. But like, when we got to the end, yeah, I was like, okay, great. I'm glad she's happy. She's in a relationship, but I hope she gets her vengeance here. I hope she just like, you know, oops, just slipped a little extra out, whatever, you know, like
My bad. Yes.
yes.
Or even better, she just like doesn't give him his last round of medication for the day and he just,
It just
like
stares him down.
yeah.
Yes.
He
Fades
dies
away.
slowly.
Yes.
Oh my God. On that
approve.
note, I'm gonna jump near the end of the book. We'll jump back and forth. You know, don't worry about it. But this is just reminding me of Jamie's death. Okay.
Wow.
When
Yeah.
Jamie
Drama.
died, I was like, thank God. Okay. Like I feel so bad being like, I'm so glad you died. But A, he's not real. B,
Yeah,
he's
it's a fictional
awful.
character.
Yeah.
I can feel that. Yeah.
Like, just from the moment we met him in the book, I was like, he's gonna be disgusting. He's gonna be a piece of shit. I already know
Yeah.
it.
Bad vibes.
Yeah,
Bad
like
vibes.
I grew up in a small, all-white town, and I knew who that was. Even though I didn't know a rich Jamie, I knew a poor country bumpkin Jamie. You know, I think we've all met Jamies, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I was like, oh my God. And when she was like, I wore the right shoes, I was like,
I enjoyed that greatly.
That
I don't
honestly,
feel bad about it.
the amount of times they talk about her wearing heels and running was the most unrealistic part of this whole book. because I was just like, no, bitch, no. You're not running away on the grass in those stilettos. It's not happening.
God. Just wearing stilettos to school. I was like, why?
But also, if anyone was to do it, she would, because she is committed to the look.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is.
That's true. Yeah. What are people's thoughts on Jamie, okay? Because he disgusted me to my core. I have so many notes where I'm like, oh my God, I hate Jamie. I hate him. Like,
I did not like Jamie, but I thought that he was very well written. I enjoyed reading the parts that Jamie was in because I was like, you're just like such a gaslighting little fuck. Like, I don't know. There's no other way to describe him, but the way that she wrote it was so good. I was getting so mad and I was getting uneasy and I was like, maybe he is right. I felt like he was like successfully gaslighting me at some parts where I was like, maybe he is so traumatized that he can't remember this accident and stuff. So I was like, I was all about it. I was all about him dying too, but like, it was just really great.
very well written. Yeah, I get that.
Definitely agree. In the beginning, even before he was starting to show his real colors, I still was like, something ain't right. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but you don't feel like a good guy to me. Like, in the beginning, just little things that he would say, or just like their mentions of memories or a reference to like a party or something, and I'm just like, oh. And then you started to see a little bit more, but then he would switch back so quickly, and you're like, I'm like, something. I'm gonna. And when we still were under the belief that this whole accident, was a real thing, I would get so mad when he was like, basically like, well, it didn't happen for me, like it happened for you. I don't know what you're I was like, oh my God, I hate rich people like you. And then we obviously see, so I too rejoiced when he died. I was like, actually, I was just like, I lie. I take that back. I just was like, I was like, good, because I just didn't care about him. So I was like, good, he died. Let's move on.
Right, like don't give him the power.
Yes.
I feel the same way as all of you. Jamie was bad news from the beginning. Didn't like him one even bit. And Chiamaka was always like fawning around over him. I'm like, what is so great about this guy? But that always happens, There's always like the one shitty guy who like the really cool girl is like into for some reason and no one else understands it. So
you see it all the
true
time
to life.
on The Bachelorette.
Absolutely. That whole dynamic actually with Jamie and Chiamaka really reminded me of, do you guys remember the TV show Veronica Mars?
Yes.
Yeah, it just really gave me those vibes, like the rich guy and the like not necessarily as well. I mean, Chiamaka was rich too, but I think she wasn't like first generation rich family. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the whole thing about the party and the like missing memories and the like maybe some sort of sexual assault and kind of trying to figure out and digging deep into the histories and the death and everything. It really brought back a lot of like Veronica Mars feelings for me. So I really loved that show. So I was really kind of I'm not gonna say enjoying that portion of the book because obviously not, but definitely bringing up a lot of those same kind of vibes.
Yeah, bringing up that party and all the flashbacks she had, I really still don't know, like, what happened at that party? Like, was she assaulted? Was she drugged and then just, like, humiliated for blackmail down the road? Like,
probably all of the above, I'd say.
Yeah.
Just disgusting, honestly. But I will say, this is going to sound awful, but I appreciated the fact that earlier on in the book when Devon's explicit photos, or like I think there was like a sex tape sort of going on when that came, with Scotty. Oh my God, I read that my husband is Scotty and I was like, no. How could you? But
feeling mad at him later.
Yes, I was like,
Scott, how dare you?
Every Scott I've met in real life has been nice, so I was like, how dare you tarnish the name. Anyways, when that happened in the book, I will say I was pleasantly surprised, even though it was a horrendous, terrible thing to happen, that the author chose to make it about Devon and about his coming out and not about Chiamaka and like continuing the very tired trope or like idea of like women engaging in sexual activity and then being like promiscuous, you know, and then shaming them. So this way it was still terrifying, but it was more about you have just like really taken something very personal to someone who is not out and just splashed it around everywhere. Like, that's such an invasion of privacy. I mean, both ways are, but this was just a new take on that kind of horror, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely started to become kind of a trope for women to have these like secret sex tapes that come out down the line, you know?
Yeah.
And I did appreciate as well that even though part of Devon's storyline was being outed to the school, it wasn't his entire character arc. So it wasn't, the whole story wasn't about like, oh God, am I going to ever come out to my family? Like, he had so much else going on that he was working through, and obviously all the PTSD from when he was in middle school, and, you know, his father dying and he didn't know about it in prison, and just all these really difficult things that he was going through. And I mean, all of those were terrible, and I'm not trying to say like one of them was better than the other, but it is nice to see a gay character who's not just like the focal point is them coming out.
Yeah, they're not just there to be gay.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that I really liked about that too is that nobody really came back at him about those things. Like, oh, his sex tape was released and that is so embarrassing. But nobody was walking up to him being like, oh, you're gay, or like calling him names or anything like that. It was just like, everybody was just like, yeah, we exposed your secret, haha, like it was anything else.
But at the very beginning, Chiamaka was like, she said something to Jamie about like, don't be so stereotypically like white guy about Scotty being on the football team and drama club, whatever, and him being gay. And then to herself, she was like, oh wait, but I'm stereotyping Devon because he's black and gay, and I'm kind of like surprised by it. Like, that was the shock to her. So, which I thought was also interesting because that is, you know, a big issue. So, yeah, I liked all these little tidbits to try to like learn more about each character and all the different like problems that are plaguing them. I was like, oh my God, there's so much to go into, you know? Like,
I know we all hated Jamie, but I also really couldn't. I hated how Jack treated Devon because, you know, all this time they were friends and he just kept being like, you know, I wonder what's wrong and what's going on. And especially at the end, oh my gosh, like, I don't condone violence, but I'm glad he punched the shit out of him because he was like, you know, I have to work twice as hard, but you've got, I forgot what the word was.
affirmative action.
Yeah. And I was like, ugh. So I, like, his was a little, you know, less. He wasn't a rich whatever, but for him to be slowly distancing himself from Devon when he came out and then being one of the people involved, I was so upset. So upset.
Yeah.
I know.
That was so upsetting. Yeah, especially with all the flashbacks that Devon had of like, Jack, I was there for you when your father died, your parents died, and you, like, we were there like watching them being put into the ground, and we cried together, and there was like such an emotional bond that they had, and then for Jack to just betray all of that just because of this like this bitterness and this jealousy and this hatred that he felt, it was so awful.
Yeah.
Well, and the fact that Jack was like, you did this to yourself. I'm like, what did he do?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Be born?
you serious? Yeah. And
Existing, yeah.
I think the worst betrayals in the book were Jack and Mr. Taylor, okay?
Oh my God, Mr.
That
Taylor.
scene really scared me.
Yeah.
I think that was
livid.
the best line, or the line that was because I can, and I was like, no. Just when he started laughing like Juilliard.
Yes.
I was like, what do you
Like,
mean?
I can't, your face, oh, I can't take it. I was like, what? Because I was like, I wrote down in my notes, I kid you not, like the Tyra Banks meme, like, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting.
Yes. Literally, I was like, okay, at least he's got him.
Yes. Like, Mr. Taylor, his mentor, he's helping him along. And then, so him and Jack, I felt like were the worst betrayals. Belle, I was like, I don't trust you from day one. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever, girl. But Mr. Taylor and Jack, I was like, how dare you? Like, I can't.
Yes.
Yeah. The writing for that scene where you find out that Mr. Taylor is not this great guy it was so cinematic. And it really did bring me back to watching the movie Get Out. And when at the end they're all like kind of attacking her and she's like, no, let's go, and then he's like starting to leave and she's like, you think we let you leave? Like,
yeah,
you're so stupid. And it really brought me back to that moment, and I was like like having like a panic attack, like flipping through the pages trying to like get through the section. I couldn't put it down. It was so crazy, and it made me so mad. And even though obviously myself and Tilly and Kelly have a different experience, we're all still women, and being put in a position like that and reading a man like that, I was still like, I felt like that could be like me trapped in a room with someone who's like super psycho, and I was like getting all of these like personal feelings like mixed in with this like bigger picture kind of thing, and it was just a lot, and it's bringing me back to it just talking about it right now. I feel gross.
This book also reminded me of Mexican Gothic because of the gaslighting and I mean, the eugenics and that too, but like the amount of gaslighting in this book and Mexican Gothic, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, even to the end when, like, I was Team Devon the whole time. He's like, I don't think we should trust this newscaster. I'm like, I'm with you. Don't trust her. You don't know who she is.
No.
Who she's working for.
As soon as they didn't specify if she was white or black, because I was like, why would you go to a white lady to report this thing? Obviously, you have to assume she's not trustworthy. Because I was like, oh, maybe they'll go to, like, a black news reporter, and then that would be, like... And then they didn't specify anything about what she looked like, I don't think. And I was like, oh, it's over. It's done. They're fucked.
Yeah. Once she said, no, let's not do, like, a piece. Let's do it live. I was like, like, you didn't need any convincing. I don't like it. But when there's just so... I think that was a big... plus to the book is it definitely, I feel like a lot of books that are marketed now as thrillers are mismarketed. In my mind, I think thriller is fast-paced and like has you on the edge of your seat, anxiety like this. And I think more other books are kind of like slow burn mystery. But this one definitely was like, I just felt like I would want to pick it up, but I'm like, oh my God, am I in the mood to be so uncomfortable right now? And like just every chapter, I'm like, oh no, like it just is like an anxiety, an uncomfortable feeling from like page 1 to the end. I was like, oh God, because even like I think the first or second chapter with Devon, and they get named prefects, and he sees like a flash on the screen, and he's like of like an ace or something, and nobody notices, and I'm like, oh God. Already at the beginning to the end. So, atmosphere.
When we were talking about doing the episode just like a week before, I guess, or right before Tilly started reading the book, she said, should I watch Get Out? And I said, yes, you should. And then I immediately regretted telling her to watch it because having seen that movie ruined a lot of the suspense in this book for me.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh, clearly everybody's in on it. Mm-hmm. Like, is this whole like systematic thing built against them?
Ooh, yeah.
And I was like, well, okay. Like it kind of ruined some of the thing. Like I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I was like, well, you're probably in on it, and you're probably in on it, and like
I've seen Get Out. It's been a while, so I don't think I remembered it as clearly, but I didn't go immediately see everyone was on it, but like I didn't suspect Mr. Taylor or anything at the beginning, but like even Terrell, I was like, I don't like everybody. Right? I just was like, are you trustworthy? Can I, Belle. And so, I think, but I definitely think watching it closer can definitely just make you see kind of everything coming.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Nikki, because I did watch Get Out. I hadn't watched it before, even though I knew it was supposed to be really brilliant, because I'm a big scaredy cat, and I was really scared to watch it and be freaked out by any kind of scary movie. But you know, I did a little reading about it and I was like, okay, so it's not so much that it's like scary and the jump scare and all that, it's more like social commentary and, you know, all the difficult, you know, facing our own society, blah blah. So I watched it, and very excellent movie. Had to process for about 8 hours before I could think about it again. And then when I was reading this book, it honestly didn't occur to me at all that there would be a kind of like group, you know, behind it all. I was really fixated on the dead girl from The Road.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, she's Ace of Spades she's Aces because, you know, there was all that mention of Chiamaka went back afterwards and there was no blood on the road, nobody at all. And I was like, that's so
But the
suspicious.
tree was still dented.
But the tree, right. So I was like, I think it's that girl. I don't know why and I don't know how, but I'm along for the ride. So I didn't even, and then when it became a whole society, I was like, oh. But I can see how, you know, that is kind of a spoiler to market it like that.
With the name Niveus, and I'm glad they touched on it later in the book.
Oh, right.
But
yeah.
Niveus does mean white.
I didn't know
And
that.
I didn't
Latin,
know that
right?
before reading, but as soon as they said the name of the academy, I was like, it's a clue. So I Googled it. Yeah.
Oh,
like-
I was just like,
I was like, Latin
It was like
words,
old
yeah.
school, yeah, Latin.
Yeah.
Great. Like,
Well, I
That's
was just
so-
like, oh, it's a Latin name that I feel like it's probably going to mean something, especially because I was already like hypersensitive to the fact that it was probably going to be this whole like society. That being said, it didn't really like ruin the book for me. I still had a really good time and I was still enjoying all the plot twists and how things were coming out.
Yeah.
I think if the writing would have been not as good, I would have been like, well, that it was just kind of a write-off.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun, even though I was kind of suspecting. And with Belle, as soon as Chiamaka's like, oh, her like beautiful blonde hair, I was like, ugh, it's
She's
either
it.
her
Yeah.
or
Or
she's like
someone related
related
to
to
her.
someone.
yeah, I thought
Yeah.
she was the dead girl until
Yeah.
she's like was like your sister or whatever. Because yeah, she kept bringing up her blonde hair, and I was like, we know a blonde. She's supposed to be dead. Like there's only one blonde.
There's
in the
only
world.
one blonde in the world. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And I did think it was going to be a group of people, but I didn't think it was going to be the whole school because I was holding out for
And
Mr.
beyond,
Taylor.
other schools too.
Yes. Yeah.
And the
my
news.
God.
Fucked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fucked.
It's a network.
Honestly.
A network of terrible
Yeah.
people.
The social network.
I know. I was writing the like character document for us, and I kept having to write like, we think it's this person, but they're actually trash, and this person's trash, and this person's trash. They're all trash.
All of them.
Well, yeah.
Because at the end of it, it's like, who we still believe in? Terrell.
Oh,
And that's
Terrell.
pretty much it, right?
I was
And Belle
so-
sort of too, I
No,
guess.
I don't trust Belle. I
Okay,
hate
sorry,
her. She was awful.
I think that Belle became, I don't want to say, the word redeemable isn't right. She didn't become redeemable, but you did see that she did care for Chiamaka at least a little bit, because she did tell her at the end,
After
like she was
Chiamaka, like, you know, confronted
Yeah,
her.
but I mean, if you were a part of this really awful scheme to ruin these poor people's lives, and then you loved one of them, would you be like, okay, sorry, I just gotta, before we eat dinner, I really need to just tell you this really awful thing I've been doing.
No, but like,
Like maybe I would do that.
okay, if I was Belle, okay, and this was happening, and then Chiamaka comes in and she's like, hey, are you Aces? Are you part of it? And I went, okay, but I didn't know what to do, and my family's... I'd be like, bitch,
Sure.
you ruined my life. You know what I mean? Like, no way. Like, I'm very loyal, okay? If someone screws me over like that, and it's not even like, oh, you screwed me over, like, you want to harm me. You know, you hate me. You hate, you know, like, I can't, because the same thing with Jack, and when Jamie was like, oh, I tabbed it right here, page 239, would I have touched you if I
Oof.
hated black chicks?
Oh yeah, yikes.
So
Yeah.
I don't like Belle. I don't like her because it was just like Terrell being like, well, did Andre help you? Did he, or did Jack help you? Like, are they actually good people? Did Mr. Taylor help you, right? I was like, you know? I don't know. Belle.
Yeah.
I don't like her.
Belle. Trash. Throw her.
Yeah.
Yeah, throw her right out.
I just felt.
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to say she wasn't trash. I was just trying to say,
Yeah.
if you were in that situation, there's not a whole lot of other ways you can go about doing that. So, like, I think that what she did was, like, what probably anybody would do if they were a piece of shit.
I would. I mean, if I were a piece of shit, I'd be a piece of shit, right?
Yeah, hard to imagine that because it's just so far from reality. So
That sounded really sarcastic.
Yeah, I was like,
no, it's not. No, sorry. I have trouble with sarcasm sometimes. I'm like just too good at it. You know?
Yeah.
So.
I feel like you could come clean and then you just have to deal with the consequences. Like, you're probably not going to be together. But, like, the fact that she didn't say anything until she was confronted, I'm like, I don't know.
Because she's like, I fell in love with you. I'm like, but how did you fall in love with me if literally the society that you're a part of hates my essential being? Like, not because not because my way I dress or some personality trait you can change. Literally because I am black. And your family, the society hates me, but you fell in love with me while also participating in my downfall. I don't believe it. I refuse.
Yeah, and it was so quick too. Like they only knew each other for like a few days or weeks maybe. And I was like, is that love or is that something else? No.
It was also really funny to me that she was dating Jamie, but at the same time, she was kind of like, Jamie isn't doing this good enough, so I'm just going to insert myself in here and also date or try to like get Chiamaka to like me because he's just like, he's not moving quick enough. We need to like, we need to get the ball rolling here, which is something that I didn't really think about until after the book was done. But when I was thinking about how nice she was to her and them hanging out and her kind of always being on Chiamaka's side whenever something happened between Chi and Jamie. And I was like, she was basically just like, Jamie, just get out of my way.
Yeah.
You're not working fast enough.
Yeah.
And then she was like, but I kind of like her. So, like, what do? I guess I'll just catch a cold. Like, what? She's just like, I'm sick. I'm like,
She'll never realize that my sister was the dead girl. Like,
yeah, we
don't look at this frame. This one frame on my wall. Not suspicious at all. I was like,
hearing the noises upstairs, I was like, who's upstairs?
I know. I was kind of bummed that it was a cat because I was like, let's get some fighting action happening.
How did we feel about Terrell? Because personally, I was very suspicious of him, especially because every time Devon would talk to him, he'd just be like, so what's going on with your life? And like wouldn't really share anything about himself. And I was like, he's in on it. But I was really kind of rooting for him because I felt I wanted him to be good. You know, I wanted him to be what he seemed, like the kind young man from his past. Like that's what I wanted. So I'm really glad it turned out that way, but I wasn't sure it was going to. Thoughts?
Yeah.
I felt the same way.
She wrote it really
Thanks.
ambiguous almost at times because he seems like harmless, but then he kind of came out of nowhere and you're like, you just brought this person back to your house. Then you find out that he knew him and he's like, you don't remember me? And I'm like, oh, why doesn't he remember you? And then he seems to be on his side, but then it was like, when his mom knows who Terrell is, I'm like, oh my God, what did he do? And then you figure that out. And then he says that he did help a little bit at the beginning. So she just like kept you being like, okay, is he good? You know, and like overall he was. But the whole time I was just like, he's gonna betray Devon. I know it.
I know.
Yeah.
And I guess there was like a little baby betrayal in there too, right? Where he was sort of kind of working against him briefly, but he was like, I said no. Yeah. Which is very, you know, commendable to be in that difficult situation where you're trying to get some extra money for your, like, I think his sister was sick.
Bills, yeah.
Right. And then to still be like, no, you know what? I need to stand up for this person and for my moral stance.
Yes. In Canada, that wouldn't happen because we have health care.
But it's very,
humble brag.
Very fitting for America. Very on brand.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly. But no, I had to throw that little jab in there. But no, see, I felt like Terrell was different from Belle because he came out and said, I betrayed you. I'm so sorry. Right. This is what happened.
He was
but he only did it when he got found out too.
No.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. What did he say? Like, 17.
Yeah, the computer.
And he was like, I didn't tell you that. And he's like, yeah, you did. And he goes, no, I didn't. And then Charles like, oh, I looked at your phone, blah, blah, blah. And then he had to tell him because he got caught. So I still really like Terrell.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that happened.
I really liked Dre as well. I kind of wanted.
I loved Dre.
Devon and Dre to end up together. I thought they were, especially where they'd known each other for so long, and felt like they had such a beautiful like bond.
It was like really giving me like Boys in the Hood vibes, like the guy who's like stuck in their kind of like world and their community, and then the other guy who wants to like get out and make more of himself. Yeah, but it turns out he should have been running the other way.
Yeah. I was so pleasantly surprised at the beginning when you have like Devon going in to meet Andre for the first time, like in his room, and I thought he was gonna get beaten up. I thought it was gonna be something went wrong. And then when they started kissing, I was like, oh,
instead it was spicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, he's the one. He's the key partner,
But they still had to keep it secret, so I wasn't hopeful that they were gonna make it in real life because I felt like Dre still had so much shame.
Yeah.
It made me so sad when he went back later in the book and they like had that like one last night together, and I was like almost in tears. I was like, this is gonna be it. It's no more.
Did you have Song of Achilles vibes? Because
yes.
I did. Of like impending doom. We both really care
Beautiful,
for each other.
boy love. Yep.
Impending doom.
There was, yeah.
I mean, that's the whole book, really, impending doom.
Well, truly. Your American jab earlier, which does not hurt my feelings. America is trash. I said it. So when I started this book, since I follow Faridah on Twitter, and so I know she's based in the UK, and so I assumed with private school, Nivius Academy prefects, I was like, oh yeah, this is set in England. And then they would say, like, make references to the UK as if they weren't in the UK, and I was so confused. And then, it said that this is set in America, but just very general. And she talks about in her author's note that she did that so that it's not just associated with like a certain place, that this can happen anywhere, which I get. But in books, I'm a very big setting person, even when it's like contemporary. Like I want to know if it's a city or if it's by a beach. Like I love a specific setting, and so sometimes that threw me off, and just the use of like prefix. And one weird thing, and maybe this is just because I'm American, but Jamie's last name was Fitzjohn, and I just didn't feel like that went together.
Like,
and I just felt like that's a made up name.
Yeah, I was like,
really,
that's
to me, I was just like, this is throwing me off. This is a made up name. Fitzjohn.
It could have been Fitzgerald would have been perfectly fine.
And then the Fitzwilliam Pride and Prejudice, like British again,
Yeah.
Well, in the book, they specify that they're in the States by saying something like, oh, they want everything about Nivius to seem British. They even make us call our principal a headmaster.
Yeah.
Something like that. So it's like, clearly it's in the United States, but I think I got a little over halfway through the book before I was like, she's never said where they are.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to know.
I was really happy when I read the author's note that she addressed that.
Yeah.
Because it is so hard to write something so long and never specify specifically where you are.
Yeah.
And do it in a way that like I didn't even really notice it until later in the book, because I was just thinking like, where are they? I was like, are they in like Chicago or something? I don't know. I was getting like Illinois vibes, and I was like, oh, what is this? And then I was like, they never said.
But then
I was like,
beach.
Yeah, so I was like, is it the Northeast?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like on the coast? Is it Connecticut, Northeast? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because there was the water. But yeah, that was that. I think also I love the whole I don't know if you want to call it subgenre or just aesthetic of dark academia in books.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went into that.
We all love a good school setting.
Yes. And I just wish it was like like they stayed at the school, like it was like a boarding school. Just for that setting part, because then but the mess they could have gotten into with that.
The isolation of being at a boarding school.
Yeah, not your...
And also no parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's no contact other than the teachers.
Yeah.
So scary in the dorms.
Yeah.
Aces would have gone wild.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't had more like card puns so far.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I had been looking on Faridah's website and she has all of the characters as like the jester and the pauper and the minions and all that, almost like they're little kind of like card characters. It's really cute.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I would suggest looking it up because there's really lovely art for each of them. And now that I'm looking at their faces, I'm like, yeah, makes sense. And then, Terrell is like the wild card. I'm like, yeah, he was. I didn't know right up until the end. And
That
bullshit
works.
Rosario, the cat.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Well, I will say, just quickly going back to the setting, like, I understand and appreciate that she wanted to show that, like, this can happen anywhere in the world. But I'm also kind of like, why didn't she set it in the UK, but just, like, not in a specific spot? Like, why the US? Because she is from the UK. You know?
Maybe she really wanted to have that healthcare thing in there because in the UK they also have very good healthcare. Like if you have to take a taxi to the hospital to give birth, they give you the taxi fare back.
Which is
Least
amazing.
they could do. Yeah.
So good.
Honestly.
Like, how dare you? I would not want to have to pay for an Uber, or which people are doing now to get to the hospital, or, like, pay for your cab just to, like, push out a baby. I'd be like, I'm busy, okay? Like, you have to take me to the hospital. I'm about to push a living thing out, okay?
And America said you're going to push out some money, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 10 grand or
If
more.
you can push a baby, you can push
Or
out
more.
some dollar bills.
Yep. It's so expensive. Ugh.
Yikes.
I can't.
One thing I wanted to kind of bring up was, did you think that the twist of the society and who Aces really was happened too early in the book?
When did it happen?
It happened kind of midway through. I remember being like, oh, now we know. And then most of it was kind of, after that, was dealing with the fallout from that and the plan and what do we think. And then the ending wrapped up so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
It was like so much anticipation. And then it was all of a sudden like fizzled out and it was done. And I don't know. I felt like that pacing was a little weird for me.
I think it happened too fast for the amount of information we got about the society.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of an info dump.
We all read Truly Devious. Jess, I don't know if you read that book by Maureen Johnson, but the format of it is it goes back and forth from present day to the 1930s when this murder took place. And so you get all of the things that are happening around the murder when it actually happened, and then also when they're trying to solve it later. And I think that a format like that would have worked really well for this book, because I felt like at the end I was satisfied with where our characters ended up, but I wasn't really satisfied with the information we got about the Ace of Spades Society. I would have liked to hear a lot more about the first victims, how the society came into play, maybe Headmaster Ward when he was in the society. Like, how did all of these people get together and were they just sitting around at a party one night and they were just like, who I really hate?
Let's take them down.
Black people. And they were all like, yeah.
That's
like,
true.
It's
It
like,
is
how do
very,
you
like,
even
how do you get there?
broach that topic with a bunch of people, I guess.
Right?
Like, so I would have really loved to see more of that, because I felt really dissatisfied at the end with how everything came to be, and I was really interested in the inner workings of the society, especially like how did they do all this before text messages and before you could just like shoot people off a text or look them up on Facebook or anything. I don't know. That was kind of my feelings. I think it was too early for the info we got, but if she would have given us more, it would have been a good time.
I wanted to know more about that, and especially the ending. Like, I was happy everyone, like, it was almost like a Here Come the Cavalry that happens like in fantasy books, that everyone showed up, but then it was just like over. And then it was like epilogue, and I was like, wait, no, like, obviously we know about the fire, but yeah, I do agree. I don't know how not to make it too long, because sometimes that can also happen where it's like, all right, we get it. But yeah, definitely them figuring out who Aces was in society, and then the plotting, they were going back and forth for a while, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. It would be cool to get a prequel
Yeah.
about like the beginning of the Ace of Spades and get it from the perspective of maybe some of the people who were in the society rather than the victims, or have both.
Yeah.
But I just felt like there was a lot of information lacking because they were kind of guessing at things, and they were guessing right, but that's not really realistic.
And obviously it's fiction. I'm trying to suspend disbelief, but that it's been going on this long, and it's every 10 years only two black, I'm like, no one ever
arbitrary.
Yeah, like you would think it would be every year, so it didn't look so suspicious, because only every 10 years 2 black students, and they never graduate. Like, I feel like that would eventually be, I was like,
well, and then I was
okay.
like, why not every 5 years so every class gets a chance to do it?
Yeah.
So couldn't you argue that it's like, it's so obvious, but it's like, isn't that the point? Because we're all just like pushing everything under the rug, like, what do you mean?
Yeah, so like they wanted to give it enough time for the other people to be forgotten, but like, why would you pick such a nice like round number?
Right?
Like,
yeah, like, I guess whoever started it was very type A, and it was like,
So I guess what we're saying is we all want to know, what are the detailed rules of this awful society?
Yes.
What's the guidebook? Like, I mean, I think it would have helped to understand and really hit home the horror. But it also worked really well not knowing all that and having them kind of slowly figuring it out. So I don't know, I'm of two minds of that one.
Well, the way that things were revealed, I kind of felt like this book was a thriller horror, because like, not so much of like, well, I mean, when the masked ace was like coming into Chiamaka's house, basically, I was like, oh my god, like, intruder.
I had to turn all the lights on in my house.
okay, is Guy Fawkes from V for Vendetta, is that like the anonymous mask?
That was a weird
And
choice
like,
for the mask.
why don't they just use a different mask? But then I was like brainstorming, I was like, what kind of mask would they have? But all I could think about was like this cardboard cutout of like an ace of spades with like 2 eye holes, and I was like, that's not good.
Maybe if they could have, like, when they see everything on the computer, then maybe if she spent more time with, like, they took more time to research and like found just a little bit more on that, because it kind of was like, some Google, and then it was that, like, if they went, I don't know, public library, archives.
I also wish that there would have been like more discussion when Devin was looking through the computer, and like, I wish that they would have dove into a few more of those folders, because it was kind of like, oh, I saw a folder called murder, oh no, I have to go, and I was like, really, that's it?
Put more
You're gonna leave us
time into
there?
the internet,
I do wonder if there was going to be another book. Is it a series or is it a standalone?
I think it's a standalone.
Is it a standalone? Because on Goodreads, this is what I hate about Goodreads. It has like a second book, like an image, an outline of a second one. Like, when you can go down and be like, other books in the series. It doesn't have a title or anything. There's just like an outline of a book. I swear. Let me look at it again. But I was like,
so is it just confirmed but not?
I don't know.
Published?
I need a confirmation. Now I'm gonna.
Because it does a little bit feel like there were satisfying things about the ending, but it didn't feel like every single thing was wrapped up.
Like, will we follow new students, and we also get Devon and Chiamaka as the leaders of the underground thing? Like, I'd be into it.
I'd be that story, yeah.
Because there were so many loose ends still, that's why I felt it was kind of like a horror book. especially the ending of like my final patient. Good evening, Mr. Ward or headmaster or whatever. I was like, oh my god, like Nurse Ratched up in here. That's her name, right? The show?
Ratched.
Ratched. I haven't finished the show. Nurse Ratched, where she's like crazy evil.
Yeah.
But she's not crazy evil. She's just like, I'm going to get you. And I'm like, I'm here for it.
So this, Goodreads just says, Usborne has acquired a second untitled book from Faridah. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a sequel. And then she put a 5-star rating and said, it's going to be good, I promise. So
I believe her.
I really love her sense of humor.
Yeah, I'll definitely read this. So I guess it won't be a sequel, but I would take one though. Or a prequel or a short something. I don't know.
Well, while we're on the subject, sort of the ending and how Dr. Chiamaka and Professor Devon made the Underground Society, I was really curious. I need to Google this because I was like, there must be something equivalent to the Underground Society in real life, you know? And if there isn't, there should be, because like, what? Like, I just thought that was so cool that they decided to create this society to help future students and like give them resources and...
Was it called the Underground Society?
I believe
Yeah, I think so.
Like the Underground Railroad? Like helping... That's like the point?
That would make sense. Is it bad that I don't believe that Chiamaka would... Like... I was like,
yeah,
do
I think
believe
she got
that
out
she
of there
would
and
be
she
help
was like, yeah,
people?
Yeah. Yeah, I think she got out of there and she was like, oh, I'm glad this shit's done. I'm moving on. Like,
yeah, Underground Society.
Okay.
I thought that was really cool as well, but I was like, how are they getting all this information? Like, that's got to be like a whole like spy network that they've got.
Yeah.
To be, like, I
a
noticed
spy
that
network
this...
full of white people.
Yeah. God.
They're not going to
I
give
mean,
up their secrets.
But to find out like which student is applying where, like how do you do that? Anyway, I was very impressed by it, and I thought it's
But that's what I want a book about that.
Cause.
That's,
Yes.
I want a book about so many different things that weren't answered in this book because I care. I want to know.
Yes.
It was like there were too many things.
Yeah, like we didn't even really touch on Devon and his father in prison.
Oh God, that was heartbreaking.
When he asked about, and she was like, "Oh, he died a while ago." So sad.
No, on the day
Just
he
weeping.
visited,
Yeah.
Yep.
Did he commit
Last day.
suicide?
No, he's on death.
No, he was on death row.
But like death row doesn't happen like that takes like decades sometimes.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering if he like hung himself or something after he saw his son because he didn't want him to keep coming back because he said don't come back here, and if he's not there then Devon can't go back.
True.
So that was kind of up in the air, but I do think that it was suicide.
That's the vibes I was getting, and oh my god, that whole section was just like, my stomach just dropped. Like, I didn't know how much I could take in this book, and then she kept putting in more.
So I think that's one of my like critiques is that there was just like no, I mean, obviously at the end they both made it out and are successful, but like there was no there was no positives to break up all of the other negatives for the most, like obviously Chiamaka had her money, but like it was just thing after thing that kept beating them down, especially Devon already was like so low, just trying to get through school. And I was like, give me something. And just every chapter she was like, oh, no. I'm just going to put another nail in this coffin.
Yeah.
And I was like,
also
gosh.
felt like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity with Chiamaka's storyline, how her father is Italian and white. They never talk about that, like within like the students or the society with like the mixing of races, because that would be almost, I would assume to them, worse than Devon just being black. The fact that Chiamaka's parents are of two completely different races, like they're their quotation like superior race kind of thing. And then for him to have had a child with a black person, but that wasn't talked about at all. And I feel like that was like a little bit of a missed. It didn't have to be like the whole story, but just a touch on it a little.
Yeah.
Because
Also,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That just made me think of. I mean, it was mentioned, but that her father like didn't defend her or her mother when the family was like criticized or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Like, how do you stay married for? The listeners here, I am married to a white man. If I went to visit his family and they just sat there and spewed racist stuff to me and he didn't say anything, I'd be like, oh, bye-bye. We're not doing. And so I thought that was really odd that it was just like, okay, well, I'm just not going to say anything. I'll just go visit and y'all just stay here. That's super, I don't know. That was weird to me.
Yeah, red flag central.
Yeah, that was weird. And also, like they kind of touched on it a little bit, but I wanted more when it was Chiamaka and her mother cooking, and she was talking about how like her mom always brings up her grandmother but doesn't go into a lot of detail, and she wants to know more about her mother's family and her past and their culture, because I believe they're Nigerian, I believe. And yeah, because I really liked that part, and I liked seeing that other, like, kind of tender side of Chiamaka, where she's like, I actually really crave this for my mother, and I want to get close to her, but we don't really talk about it, and I don't know why,
Yeah.
So, like, I guess she sort of touched on it with that moment, but I was like, I feel like there was just so much in this book you couldn't touch on it all, because then you end up being legend-born, which is what I recommend, because it was so big and there was so much info. I was like, what? Like, I couldn't, because they explained everything, but I was like, oh my god, I can't process all this all at once.
I was just really into the fact that Chiamaka had, I think, her mother's last name, Adebayo.
Yeah.
And not the Italian father's last name. I was like,
I was wondering about that too. I was like, that's
that.
definitely not Italian.
No.
Well, and I was just like, what a strong, like, powerful woman move, and I loved it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't really kind of the same way like that Tilly said, like I didn't relate to Chiamaka at all because I was not a popular kid in school, and I don't think I was especially mean, hopefully. So but like the thing that made me really feel for her was her talking about her mom and her mother braiding her hair, and her talking about having to go to school even though she didn't straighten her hair and stuff like that. One of my really good friends growing up was the only black student in our school, in high school, and she always had her hair straightened. And I remember spending the night at her house, and she was in the opposite situation of Chiamaka, where her mother was white and her father was black. And her mother would like wash her hair for her. She'd like lay and like put her head over the tub, and her mom would wash her hair for her. And I can remember that night like very clearly about her mom being like, don't straighten your hair. And she's like, well, I have to because it just like doesn't feel good to go to school with it curly. And I was like sitting in the living room like listening to this, and I was like almost in tears because I was like, I loved her so much. She was like such a good person, and I think about her a lot. Like she was super, super nice, and to think that she was like struggling with that and she didn't have anybody else that was like a friend to talk to about it was just awful. So I just thought about that a lot with Chiamaka and like throughout the rest of the book too.
Yeah, for sure. They like a lot of those things. That's why I could always feel for her, even if I didn't love her personality or her attitude a lot, because the same thing. I mean, I struggle. In high school, I did the same thing. I always straightened my hair. I did for a long time, and only recently haven't, and I still am not confident with it. So when she talked about that, like, feeling like she had to be, this perfect and couldn't wear her natural hair and stuff like that, I was like, ooh, relatable. Yes, I'm there with you, because it's just not, I don't know the right terms, but yeah, it's still something I struggle with as an adult.
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting that on the cover, though, she did not have straightened hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, yes.
Because I was reading it and I was like, oh. And I would like flip back to the cover. And I like that. I like that she, or whoever, do they say on the, they don't say who did the artwork. Sometimes they put on the book. But
I think it's in the back of the dust jacket, jacket illustration by Adeleke Adekunle.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I like that she chose to do the illustration of her on like the one day she went to school where she didn't straighten her hair, you know? Mm-hmm. I think that's very, like, having read the book, we understand that if you just look at it, you're like, okay, 2 people on the front, looks like a playing card. But I do like that she chose that one day. And I don't remember what happened on that one day, but I feel like shit went down, you know, because of this book.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's so much in this book to go over. It's like...
Yeah, it was really rich with things to talk about and things to think about. And, yeah, I mean, for the amount of pages that it wasn't very long. No. And, like, we all read it, I think, pretty quickly, but it really, it sticks with you, I find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for sure. You can tell that this book was very personal to the author, to Faridah, because, I mean, her author's note...
Oh, I loved it.
My God.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't always read the author's note, not gonna lie, but I wanted to when I finished this book. I was like, I want to know what your thoughts are. Like, what do you have to say after you wrote this book? What do you want to tell us, you know? And I just, like, wow, what a feat, what an accomplishment to stick with this for 4 years, and it's something very personal to her, and how that evolves over 4 years, and using her personal experiences, like with her going to school in a new area, feeling isolated and kind of, and she said here, like, I did not have the same level of, you know, things happened to me when I went to school as happened in the book, which I'm like, I'm glad, first of all, but also, like, you know, just the fact that anyone relates to this stuff is terrible, you know? And, like, I just really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed her author's note. I feel like we got to know more about her as a person. I can't wait to hear more from her, because I feel like she's going to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But do we think she's only going to do thriller? I don't know. It's like...
Yeah,
I feel like she could do anything.
Yeah. I wouldn't be mad if she put out more thrillers, because, you know, she probably learned so much from doing this book. And to read something else that she does that's in the same genre, and like how much more elevated it will probably be, and like more dynamic, and maybe the pacing will be a lot better because she's already worked through some of that stuff, you know? So I would be very happy for her to do another thriller.
Oh yeah, I'll read a thriller, I'll read a
full horror novel.
Read anything else she puts out, I'd read it. I think sometimes you just read an author where you're like, oh, I can tell that you're an excellent writer, and I would read anything you write. So that's how I feel about her.
I'd like a full horror novel. I'd be down for that.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
I would read it, but I'd be scared.
I feel like she should collaborate with Jordan Peele and P.J. Lee Clark and make Ring Shout into a movie.
Yes. Ring Shout.
When I read Ring Shout, when I finished it, I was like, okay, this needs to be Jordan Peele's next thing, because it's like sci-fi horror dealing with racism in America. Like,
yes, I need it.
No one is listening to me, but watch it, okay?
I mean, it's rude. We're listening to you.
No one who could make it happen.
What are we, chopped liver? Okay. Sorry, Kelly, just giving you a hard time.
I'm used to it, it's okay.
Oh.
Okay, so did we have any favorite quotes or parts that we wanted to share before we wrap things up?
Yes.
Oh, okay, Nikki. She's ready.
Wow, so fast.
Okay, this is not the part that I really liked, but I just flipped to it. Were you guys all like audibly like, what the fuck, when or was it Devon, when they rearranged the letters
audibly
of the like school motto thing or whatever?
Yeah.
I literally almost threw the fucking book across the room. I was like, no.
I know, I was like, what? Like, trying to... Oh my god. Wow.
I thought I was so clever. I was like, Niveus, that means white. Haha. Didn't even.
That's not your favorite part, though, right?
No, it was my least favorite part. Oh, I do have my favorite part here, though. So this is on page 137, and it's a chapter from Chiamaka's point of view. He leans in close, whispering, "You should think before you open your mouth, Chi. People might start to think you're making things up for attention." His voice drips with venom. We stare at each other for a few moments, his lips tugging up a little, almost like he's smiling at me. No, mocking me. "See you around, Chiamaka," he says, his voice slithering back to its neutral state. Then he moves past, and I watch his figure compress as he walks away until it's no longer discernible. The cold in the hallway sweeps into my body. So, we all know this. The he that she's talking about is Jamie. Mm-hmm. But, like, wow. That, I could feel the hatred.
Yeah.
Just, like, oozing out.
That whole section, like... I mean, he reminded me of my ex, who was, like, super abusive, gaslighting, like, oh my god. And that's why I was like, we've all met a Jamie, you know? And so when you put this Jamie in this situation, oh my god. And yeah, Faridah, wow. Like, she's good. Just good writer.
Yeah. You guys know I love a really well-written villain, yeah. And this was it. It was great.
I agree, yeah. Tilly, do you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I just really thought this was a powerful quote. It's from chapter 42. I don't know the page number, but it's from Chiamaka's point of view. And it's when they're at the snowflake ball and she's looking at the crowns. So she says, "But as I look at the crowns sitting on deep red cushions at the front of the ballroom, I realized how stupid this all is. The prefect badge, the crown, lumps of metal I'd tied so much of my self-worth to."
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, girl, been there. I mean, this is a part where I did kind of relate to Chiamaka, where when you're a high achieving student and you apply so much of your self-worth to being like told that you're good, to being graded, and then when all of that kind of disintegrates, like obviously different for me because it was just, graduating university and then, you don't have a model anymore. How do you know that you're still good at something if you're not being graded on it? And I thought it was just such an astute observation that the things that you tie your self-worth to when you're in high school are different than when you're older. And I don't know, this really just hit home for me, kind of outside of obviously the whole situation that was going on, but I thought it was really good commentary on that sort of thing.
It reminded me too of Mean Girls when she's like, "It's just plastic."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen here. But yeah. Okay, I found my little part. So my quote / part is near the end of the book when Chiamaka finally reclaims her power against Jamie. I love a good revenge story every time. So he is like trying to threaten her and intimidate her and hurt her. And she says to him, I guess this is right before she starts speaking. It says, "I'm not going to let what he said hurt me. I won't give him that power over me. I'm Chiamaka fucking Adebayo. I don't need some prick telling me who I am and who I should be." "Are you done with your speech?" I ask, not waiting for a reply before continuing. "Call me a whore, I don't care. But you, Jamie, you bring it up because you do care." He raises an eyebrow. "You care that a girl like me can do what she wants and not give a crap about what you or anyone has to say. You care that you liked it and that your racist parents and this racist school gave you one job, to get close to me and then stab me in the back, but instead you liked it, every second of it." I just was like, oh, because then it led into... right when she kicks him in the crotch and she's like, "Rotten hell," and she thinks to herself like, "I'm so glad I wore these shoes today," like,
My ball puncturing
yes,
shoes. Yeah.
yes,
Iconic.
Yes, like after everything that he did to her, like throughout their whole relationship as friends, and then this year, well, friends, you know, and then this year, like, it reminded me of the end of Children of Blood and Bone, even though I didn't like the book, where that one part I did like, when the girl was like, when she killed her dad at the end, and was like, you know? Who was it?
I forget her name.
The princess. Yes.
Yeah.
I love the full circle, like, you can't hurt me. So that was my favorite.
Amari.
Yes, Amari. Thank you. Jess, did you have a quote or part that you would like to share?
So I hesitate to say this is my favorite part because, like, it's awful, but it's just a part that really stood out to me. Like, I had palpable, like, goosebumps. And it's something we were talking about earlier with that bastard Mr. Taylor. When basically the confrontation when Devon is talking about applying for Juilliard, and he's like, I thought you sorted it out. And Mr. Taylor says, son, you should never leave your fate in the hands of someone else. And he said, you told me you sorted it out. I repeat it like a broken record. He told me he sorted it out. That I was okay to practice whenever I needed to. My voice rises and the bile in my stomach itches to crawl through my throat and spew all over him and his suit. Mr. Taylor walks back to his piano and strokes his fingers across the keys as a loud, discordant pattern of notes screeches out. Like I was like, oh no, oh no. And then he's like, that I did, but it's okay, it's okay. He pats the air like he's patting me from afar. It's okay not to go to college, it's okay. Smiling wide, not all people are suited for higher education, especially your kind. Your kind needn't have an education. And to skip down, Devon asks why. Why are you doing this? Mr. Taylor's face morphs, his expression confused, like the answer is so obvious and I can't see it. He leans back against the oak door frame. Because I can. Like, it's just so... Ah! Oh! Yeah, so, not my favorite, but like, woof.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah.
Woof.
It
Yeah.
was a very
Effective.
well-written moment.
Yes. Oh my god. And same with, I guess we didn't, there's not enough time to talk about everything in this book, but also the part when Terrell is talking to Devon about white people and our role in racism, and Devon's like, well, I don't know, because I think it's the same part when Terrell's like, are they really good people? Like, everyone you're talking about from school, are they good? Are they helping you? And I just thought, like, wow, like, I tabbed that because, granted, this book is not a nonfiction, like, we're going to teach you about being anti-racist, but, like, there were some really good moments in here to start discussions, like the ones that we're having today. So, yeah, I just thought, like, wow, that part was very, very interesting, having it between two young black men and not, like, a black person and a white person or two white people. Like, I thought that was very interesting.
Well, and especially that distinction between being good and being anti-racist, or being like, you know, because that's such a, I think, a common misconception for a lot of people. It's like, oh, well, I'm a good person, so I can't be racist. And it's like, well, it's not really that simple, is it? It's so ingrained in, you know, our system and our society. So, yeah, I thought that was really a really powerful section as well.
Yeah. Oh my god. I think that's about it for this episode. Oh my gosh. I feel like a big weight has been lifted, but not, just because there was so much stress in this book that I was like, you know, like, feels nice to have talked through some of it.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for listening to our very first episode of season 2 of the BYOB podcast. Thank you so much, Jess, for joining us. I am so happy that you were able to join, and I hope you had fun. You're welcome back anytime.
Yay!
You're part of the BYOB family now, so
That's right.
you can join anytime.
A coveted position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this and want to hear more from us, you can head over to our social media accounts to keep up to date on all things BYOB. We'd like to thank Jess again for being our special guest today, and if you want to hear more from her and follow her bookish updates, you can find her on YouTube at Jess Owens or Instagram at Said by Jess. Our next episode will be a little different, as we'll be discussing one of our favorite contemporary romance series since the final book in the trilogy just came out. Stay tuned after this to hear the first line of the first book, The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, about a shy statistician and the male escort she hires to help her practice dating. See you next time, and until then, keep on drinking in great stories. Cheers!
Next time on BYOB, the Bring Your Own Book podcast. I know you hate surprises, Stella.